This is Orsi, official old guy at oldguytalkstome.com, a podcast dedicated to helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. It's for women too. Each week, I bring you a special guest to help you create that life that you imagine for yourself and those that you love. We talk anti-aging medicine, personal growth, relationships, and sex, vices, and other topics that many don't want to talk about but need to. Just because you're getting older doesn't mean you have to be old. Also, if you want to know 3 ways to get laid more frequently without begging, go to oldguytalks.com and opt in. When you do, you're going to get my informative video on 3 simple things you can do to get laid more frequently without begging, so you don't have to turn in your man card. And ladies, you may want your man to know these things, because I think you'll like it too. Additionally, you'll be notified weekly when a new podcast episode is ready for you to consume. Periodically, I will share with you other stuff that will help you create that life that you want for yourself and those that are important to you. Don't want to miss anything? Be sure to subscribe, share, and review this podcast.
This is information only. Consult with an appropriate professional before starting any program. Do not be stupid. You are responsible for your own shit. The old guy is a capitalist and not a socialist weasel. He will be promoting stuff here and may be compensated. You can rest assured the old guy only promotes stuff he uses. You may have different results.
This is Orsi, official old guy at oldguytalkstome.com, a podcast dedicated to helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. That's right. You got to work on both yourself and the person that you are in love with. Today, I have Dr. Joy Kong. She is a UCLA-trained, triple board certified physician. I went to that other school. She went to the public school in Los Angeles. I went to the other school. University of Spoiled Children, if you guys don't know what that one is all about. She is a triple board certified American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology, American Board of Addiction Medicine, American Board of Anti-Aging and Regenerative Medicine. She's the president of Thea Center for Regenerative Medicine in Los Angeles, California, where she specializes in stem cell therapy, which is what we're going to be talking about, to improve the functions of diverse organ systems in the body, as well as for preventative and wellness purposes. She also founded the Institute of Brain-Body Transformation, where her goal is to promote the most efficacious therapeutic modalities to transform the health of the human body and mind. She's an avid educator. I've had a chance to watch several of her YouTube videos, which have been very, very informative. And she also is she's a board member of the American Association of Stem Cell Physicians and a faculty member of Medical Wellness Association. Do they throw really good parties or not?
Pretty darn good, yes.
Pretty darn good, yeah. I would imagine. I imagine they probably have pretty good parties. There are some organizations that really have great parties. Dr. Kong founded the American Academy of Integrative Cell Therapy, where she provides physicians training on the science, clinical evidence, and safe and innovative protocols in stem cell therapy. And so I got a lot of questions here. She's been also top doctor of the year in stem cell therapy in 2019, as well as empowered woman of the year in 2019 by the prestigious International Association of Top Professional. And she's got a memoir called Tiger of Beijing, has garnered tremendous interest and was named 2020 Book of the Year from IAOTP and showcased at Times Square. So welcome to the program. Welcome to the program, Dr. Kong. And
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. And so my first question is always kind of it's a gotcha question. So I just want to let you know that. What is the most important thing you've done today?
Oh, exercise. I did my Pilates. It's actually Lagree Fitness. He hates it when it's called Pilates, but utilize some of the techniques. So that is part of my religion is to exercise every morning. So that, and then I meditated. So that is the way I start off every morning of mine. It put me on the right track every single day.
There you go, folks. Meditation it's been kind of consistent of people that perform at a high level outside of exercising. When I ask them this question, often the word meditation comes on board. And that's different from taking a nap after you've woken up. Meditation, you got to work on your breathing. It's not like you're taking a nap. Those, I'm sure people have fallen asleep during meditation. So
yeah, in a wonderful retreat, in the Himalayas when I was in India, I fell right to sleep. Yes. Very embarrassing.
yeah. And if you fall asleep in a crowded place or a lecture, make sure your chin goes down and not up, because otherwise you're
That has happened as well. Yeah.
and everybody's gonna know everybody know you fell asleep. And that's good advice for also for church too. So yeah, I've got lots of useless advice. So let's get down to the basics here. What is a stem cell?
Okay, a stem cell, that is how we came to be. All right, so if you think about how we were formed, and it's really a fascinating journey, you can literally trace it back to the first human being. I mean, this is really interesting, right? So, well, first of all, a stem cell is the cell, the first stem cell that forms us is the fertilized egg. So from that one cell, it starts to multiply, differentiate, and then it starts to go on different pathways to form our entire human body. And in adult bodies, we actually contain all these stem cells at different stages, different levels of development. So in your liver, you have cells that can potentially become liver cells. So they're stem cell, but they're kind of specialized in some way. In your muscles, there are also cells that can become your muscle cells. In your heart, there are cells that can become heart. You get my drift. So from one cell, one big grandfather stem cell, you will have all these other type of stem cells that are still in our body. But from what I just realized, when we talk about stem cell, of course it comes from fertilized egg. So the egg and the sperm each contain these pristine genetic material. When they come together, they form this original stem cell. But really, they were half of what the whole will be, right? And when the woman, what was fascinating is if you look at the journey of the egg, a woman is born with all the eggs already in her ovaries. So that means when the baby is formed, these pristine genetic material was already there, and that baby came from the mother, right? And the mother already had that baby's genetic material already in her ovary when she was born. So you can keep going back and trace it all the way back to the first mother. So this is incredible. I just realized that, how our genetic material has been preserved since the human species has been around. Sure. So anyhow, so a stem cell, there's some characteristics. One is that it can multiply. It can reproduce itself. And then when it reproduces, it produces a identical cell of itself and then a daughter cell. So what's a daughter cell is a slightly differentiated cell that, it depends on where you are on your development. If you are at a full, let's say you're a full-blown adult and you have stem cells in your heart. And when the stem cell in your heart divide, it will divide into one stem cell of itself, identical to itself, and then another cell that's a heart cell. So it's differentiated, has become a functioning cell. And by that division, it preserves itself, but then it provides you with what you need to replace the damaged tissue, right? Tissue got damaged or got old, or got dysfunctional, and then it can replace it. So it's always preserving its own population. Only that as we age, we lose them. So you don't have them forever. So we have less and less stem cells as we age. So anyhow, that may be your other questions.
Sure.
So that's kind of the definition of a stem cell is that it has the capability to divide, and so it can replenish itself, and then it can differentiate it into a more to gain more, have other manifest other functions.
Um, when I understand that there's different stages to stem cell healing. What are those stages?
Yeah, so this is something that's not really talked about. So if you if you ask, I would say 99% of doctors who are doing stem cells, and you ask them what are the 3 stages healing of stem cells, I bet you 99% will not be able to tell you. So so the stages, that is really important. I'm trying to, I, like you said, I found an academy, American Academy of Integrated Cell Therapy, to educate doctors, really is to give language. And so the doctors not only understand it, but also are able to explain to their patients. So there are different stages, and that is it shows you just how complex the cells are and the way they work.
Mhm.
So there's just stages because of how they work. So one really important function of stem cells, especially the type of stem cell therapy we're doing these days, which are from mesenchymal stem cells. I'll just shorten it as MSC. So everyone, in the field knows MSCs is kind of the gold standard. Nowadays, everyone wants to make sure we have MSCs. Why is it so important? Because MSCs are in every tissue of our body. So yes, like I said, in your heart, you have heart stem cells, right? In your liver, you have liver stem cells. Your cartilage, you have cartilage stem cells. But guess what? We also have these mesenchymal stem cells, these MSCs. They are all over your body. Anywhere there's blood supply, when there's, a vasculature that exists, these cells are there. They are wrapping around your blood vessels, and kind of like a gecko holding onto a wall, they are there, sensing what's going on in your blood, sensing what's going on in the neighborhood, in the environment, having literally physical contact with local stem cells. And they are finding out what your body needs, what your, what signals are coming through the blood, and what the local tissue, what kind of need they have. And they have this, it's almost like this quarterback role. They're helping conducting the symphony of repair and regeneration. So that's why they're so important, and they're all over our body. So just to give you statistics, when we were born, 1 out of 10,000 cells in our body is MSC. When we reach our teenage years, it becomes 1 in 100,000. So you already have, tenfold decrease as far as ratio goes. And when you reach your 40s, it becomes 1 in 400,000. When you reach your 80s, it becomes 1 in 2 million. So these cells do decline, but they play a really crucial role. So they're all over your body, and the way they work, there are many, many functions. One of the major effect is anti-inflammatory effect. So when we age, we have more and more inflammation. It doesn't matter if you're healthy or not. The inflammation markers are going to go up and up. And also when we catch diseases, one of the important thing is to have inflammation. But if you just have inflammation, which is important to help your body recover, to help your body mount an attack on the damage, on the infection, but you also need anti-inflammatory actions so that your other reparative mechanisms can come in. So these mesenchymal stem cells, these MSCs, actually can calm down inflammation and provide this kind of bring in the wave of repair and regeneration. So the first stage of stem cell therapy is this anti-inflammatory effect. So that's why, I have patients who they may have chronic pain, they may have brain fog, autistic kid may have all kinds of blockages as far as behavior. Sometimes things happen really fast, within a day or two. And my sense from what I've read, from literature and just from understanding how stem cells work, is that there's a rapid calming down of inflammation. And that's why the pain signals can be switched off very quickly, so that people can have very rapid pain relief, or their brain connections all of a sudden is functioning better. So they are able to have more normal behavior, when previously the inflammation was preventing them from getting from being able to behave in a normal way, like feeding themselves, or being able to play in a more normal sense. So there's a rapid change from the anti-inflammatory reactions. And then the second stage is when there is a replacement and rebuilding of tissue, and that will take much longer time. So that the anti-inflammatory effect would take between hours to maybe a week or two. That's the more acute effect. And then the tissue rebuilding would take from days to months. So it takes time for the cells to divide, to make new tissue, and to form the right structure. So that is when the MSCs can signal local stem cells and can also bring in the immune cells. So they need to also remove debris, right? They need to remove bad cells so the new healthy cells can come in and replace. So all that takes time. So that's the second stage. So, we're not performing, miracles in the sense, instantaneous change. It is rather miraculous, but there's time required. So you need to give it, that's why, I tell patients, well, we're rebuilding tissue, so give it time. So that's the second stage. And the last stage is very interesting, which is the kind of the genetic modification stage. First of all, the MSCs have a very interesting way of working, and there's a multitude of mechanisms. But one of the things it can do is mitochondria transfer. So it actually can establish microtubule bridges between itself and the recipient's cells. So actually the mitochondria, the fresh new mitochondria, because what I use is birth tissue derived stem cells, and these mitochondria are very fresh. They haven't gone through the whole environmental degradation, haven't followed you throughout lifetime. So these are very high functioning mitochondria. And so they travel across and get into the recipient cells to boost the recipient cells function, right? Okay. So if a patient gets the stem cells, they're also getting some new mitochondria supply. Do you have a question?
I just want to talk a little bit about mitochondria. Why is mitochondria, vital mitochondria, important?
Well, mitochondria is really the engine of our cells. So, it's actually a huge thing in medicine and in how we understand how our body, certain diseases, how we decline. So much has to do with mitochondria decline. So mitochondria produces oxygen, it produces ATP, utilizing oxygen, and that's how our cells can have the energy to do anything. So that is the foundation of how our cells function. So if the mitochondria is going downhill, then your cells just simply cannot function optimally. So that's why it's so important. So when you get fresh new mitochondria, then you get a big boost to your cellular function. And then what's interesting about the MSCs is that it actually secrete some of the function it has, the way it helps the cells is by secreting what's called exosomes. So exosomes are these little packets of lipid bilayer, vesicles, and they're very, very tiny, nanometers. So they can, go across a blood-brain barrier. They can go anywhere, and this is how the stem cells, one way the stem cells communicate with everything else in your body. And within those exosomes, not only are there tons and tons of growth factors, that's designed to help your body according to your need, but also it contains microRNA. So these are little pieces of RNA that actually can go across the cell nucleus. So it gets to the very, very core of the cell and interact with the chromosome, interact with the DNA. And the DNA, nowadays, we've found out that it's not just your genetic coding that determines what's happening to you, but what happens from our living, from our environment, from our life experiences. All those factors can affect how the gene expresses itself, and that's called epigenetics.
Right.
So, and that a lot of time is done by changing the methylation patterns of the gene. And what these mRNA can do is this microRNA, they can actually help change the methylation patterns and repair the genetic material to the extent to make them younger and more vibrant or more healthy. So that will have a much longer ranging benefit because you are changing the health of the DNA. So that benefit can last from months to years. So that's the 3 stages that's just not talked about.
Sure, yeah, because a lot of people just kind of go, well, I'm just going to shoot some stem cells in there and call it a day. And it doesn't quite work that way. And I think probably also for managing patients, which obviously you do well, excellent. Managing expectations is also a big part, in terms of, okay, this is going to take this long, this is going to take that long, so I think that's an important thing. I want to get back to the exosomes and stem cells, because some people seem to think that you can substitute exosomes for stem cells, but that's not the case, is it?
That is a very naive view of life, of nature and life.
By the way, that was a very gracious put down of people that think that. By Dr. Carr, that was very gracious.
I strive to be. So, all right, cells contain DNA. What is DNA? Is massive information, is the information that decodes life, is what becomes you, right? DNA is the most energy dense substance in the entire universe. It contains so much information. And where do exosomes come from? It comes from expression of those DNA. So the cells, when it realizes it needs to secrete certain particles and certain information out, it will express, it will start to produce certain molecules and package them. Even the packaging, that's, the DNA knows how to do all that. And that is what produces the exosomes. So, so it's like I don't have a really good analogy, but you're giving the tool. So exosome is a tool, right? And then the cells are the factory, are the intelligence behind the tool. So yes, the tool is fantastic, but can you really get rid of the intelligence that's designing the tool? Then then the tools go away, right? So the tool is great, but what if you can give a whole factory or a whole pharmacy? Then I call the stem cells as almost like an intelligent pharmacy. So this is a pharmacy that can go into your body, that will be able to detect what's going on, and it has so much intelligence that it will be able to manufacture the exact tools your body need to heal. So to think that we can just put the cells in some kind of incubator and allow the cells to blindly make tools, just, tools without really knowing what the tools are for, right? Because there may be specific tools necessary for the body to heal. But when you put the cells, because that's how they produce exosomes, they put the cells in an incubator, feed it some nutrients, and let it just spew out blindly these exosomes. Not that there are not a lot of great stuff in the exosomes, but still it's blind, right? So when you put these blind exosomes into the body, yes, it has a lot of great stuff. It can help you. But what if you can put the cells that actually can produce the exosomes, and it can give you more targeted molecules to be packaged into the exosomes? Then you're getting incredible information. Not only that, you can only give so much exosomes, right? You give one batch of exosomes and the lifespan is very short. So usually people have to do repeated treatment, much more quickly, because the effect will go away within, a few months, 2-3 months. But when you give the cells live in your body for about 3 months. And during that time, it can produce incredible amount of exosomes. And those targeted exosomes can do its more targeted work. And you have 3 months of the cells producing the exosomes for you. When you give exosomes, you give it one time, right? Unless you're giving it every day, no one is getting exosomes every day. But when you put stem cells in your body, you're getting exosomes every day and every second because the cells are making them for you.
Okay, all right. Let's I wanted to talk also about different types of stem cells, because you hear a lot, I got stem cells from umbilical cord, I got them from my fat, I got them from Joe down the street, all sorts of stuff. So let's talk about where the sources and the pluses and minuses of the sources of stem cells and the pluses and minuses of using your own stem cells versus other types of other sources.
Yeah, so we started by the stem cell. Really, the first stem cell transplant is the bone marrow transplant. That just at the time, this is like 70 years ago. At the time, people didn't know that they were performing stem cell therapy. They just thought that was bone marrow transplant, and they knew it can help with blood diseases, and then they found out there are stem cells, these hematopoietic progenitor cells, stem cells that can differentiate into all kinds of cells that forms the blood. So that was the beginning of stem cell therapy. And then they realized that, there are other stem cells in the body too. It's not just in the blood, because people used to think that only bone marrow had stem cells. And then they realized stem cells were everywhere. They were in every tissue. So that's gaining new understanding, right? So, and then they realize, we can get stem cells out of fat as well. And they're really not getting it out of the fat cells. They're getting it out of the fat tissue, which contain a lot of blood vessels. So all along the blood vessels, there are quite a bit of mesenchymal stem cells, because I talked about how they huddle around the blood vessels. Right. So you're getting stem cells from the blood vessels that's wrapping around the fat. So it's not really quite the fat themselves. So you're getting stem cells out of fat tissue. And so these are, the bone marrow transplant is from another person, right? You have to match it, and then you do the transplant. And then when you do the fat, you can do it, for the same person. Bone marrow, you can do it for the same person as well. So that's why they drill into the bones, they get the cells out, and they put back in your body. So the fat also, you can do that. The newest kid on the block is umbilical cord or birth tissue derived. You can get it from, placenta, amniotic membrane. You can get it from, umbilical cord blood, cord tissue. So there are all these, different compartments within the birth tissue. So that's the newest kid on the block. It's not just another tissue. This is drastically different from our adult tissue. So this is, when we talk about birth tissue derived, so this is healthy live birth, right? So this has nothing to do with abortion. These are all babies who are born, who are healthy, and their birth tissue would have been tossed into the biological waste basket if they were not utilized. So, and then they found out there were so much stem cells within the birth tissue. And these stem cells actually are much, much younger. And when it's compared between these birth tissue stem cells and the fat-derived or bone marrow-derived stem cells, there were drastic differences. So let's just use the most important cell type, the mesenchymal stem cells, since it's kind of right now is the holy grail of stem cells. So mesenchymal stem cells, I talked about in my lectures, it's actually online. It's a YouTube video called Are All MSCs Created Equal? So it's a 40-minute lecture. I actually went through the exact comparisons, going through study after study after study about the differences. So the birth tissue derived stem cells actually create, they have longer telomeres. They can have longer lifespan because they have more generations left in them, and they produce more anti-inflammatory factors. They have more neuroprotective effect, so that they're more beneficial for your brain and nervous system, and they have more anti-cancer properties. There's a lot of differences, and they have a better ability to differentiate into different cell types. Huge difference between these cells. And the thing is, when stem cell therapy started to become, there's certain doctors and certain business approaches have been based on either bone marrow derived stem cells or fat derived stem cells. They all have their places. But when you actually look at the new science and you compare the birth tissue derived, there's so many advantages. One simple fact is that when you do bone marrow transplant, let's say you get somebody, a perfect match donor to be your, to be transplant in, use their blood, use their bone marrow. A perfectly matched donor there's still a chance of rejection, a cause of problems. But if you use even a completely unmatched donor from birth tissue, right, from umbilical cord blood, there's much less potential risk for any problems, comparing to perfectly matched adult. So that just shows you how adaptable a young stem cell is. The young stem cells can stay in your body and adapt to your local environment. So that's a whole other thing. That's another thing that people are not, quite talking about, is that when the stem cells are so young, they are very different from adult stem cells in the fact that they can communicate with the host body in a totally different manner. Yeah. So that's from when you look at not just they're more potent and they are more efficacious, and they're also safer. So there have been direct comparisons between umbilical cord derived MSCs and fat derived MSCs, and looking at their effect on cancer. So they have this, one study was this very, this aggressive brain cancer, glioblastoma multiforme, and they put the birth tissue derived MSCs or fat derived MSCs next to the cancer cells, either in a petri dish or on a live animal. And in both circumstances, when the cancer cells are exposed to fat derived stem cells, they kept growing. But when they're exposed to birth tissue derived stem cells, MSCs, they start shrinking and they're disappearing. And the same thing both in the petri dish and on an animal. And guess what? What I believe, first of all, there's certain intelligence that's retained in the younger MSCs that gradually gets lost as we age. As we age, our cells lose certain capabilities. Yeah. So even the capabilities of detecting cancer and mounting an appropriate response, which is to secrete certain molecules to tell the cells to die. So that's another vast difference. So not only is it more efficacious, but it's also safer. So there are whole, there are a lot of other issues. I don't know how much time we have, but
Did you know that there are 76 additives that have been approved by the FDA that can be added to wines? You want a wine with shit in it that may not be good for you? Well, there is an option for wines that have been produced naturally, organically, that have been tested, that have no sugar. And when they don't have any sugar, that means that they're ketosis and intermittent fasting friendly. These wines have been produced with a great deal of care on small farms and are available to you. How do you get them? Find out by going to www.oldguytalks.com/dry farms, all one word with an S, and find out more. And with your initial order, you can get a bottle for 1 penny. That's right, a bottle for 1 penny. And they taste great. They taste great. Don't wait, don't hesitate, don't procrastinate. Get those wines now. Yeah. How age related is the degradation of the efficacy?
Even when you are a few years old, it starts to decline. I would not trust. So from the what I've known about using your own tissue, probably is still okay. I think in your 40s, up to your 40s. At 50s, it start really to be, you're going to lose some efficacy. 60s, that's really questionable. And then 70s, 80s, I just think that's, to me, that's irresponsible to that when you have much better sources. Yeah.
So I just want to get clear. So even let's say you're a 40-year-old person, your feeling is that you're still better off with umbilical type of MSCs versus your own fat derived that you take from your own body and process.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. There is, when you donate tissue, talk about the screening process that goes on in terms of that donated tissue.
Yes. So the way, different companies may be slightly different, but I founded Chara Biologics. I saw a lot of problems in the field, and to me, integrity is the number one reason for existence. So I wanted to make sure that I can help provide the most trustworthy source. So the way that the screening from our company goes is that first of all, there are procurement companies that will have contract with different birthing clinics, and they are the ones that will help get the tissue to be donated. First of all, when a mother is coming close to birth, they will be asked if they want to keep the baby's tissue for future use. Mm-hmm. So they can, get the tissue, processed and stored, and that usually costs a few $1,000s a year. So some parents will do it, and 90% of parents don't. So if they choose not to do it, then they're asked if they're willing to donate the tissue. And if they do say yes, then they're asked to fill out a very extensive questionnaire, very extensive. The questionnaire will ask about their personal health history, their travel history, their work history, their toxic exposures, their sexual history, and their family history, and their partner's history, the prenatal history, everything you can ever imagine that could possibly affect the quality of that cord will be asked. So, so one thing I want to add is that there's really no incentive for people to lie, because they're not compensated in any way for the donation. Because in the US, if you compensate somebody, that's very suspicious suggestion of a sale of human tissue, and that's not legal. So you can't compensate them. So there's no reason for them to try to embellish. So if there's an answer that shows that the person is superbly healthy and they don't have any risk factors, and it's really a pristine cord from the history, then they are accepted. And once they're accepted, the mother will go into birth, and the procurement company will not accept anything unless is elective C-section. So you can't have an emergency C-section. Someone is not doing too well, and then they're going to do emergency. No emergencies. These has to be people who choose to do C-section. Why? Because when the baby goes through the vaginal canal, and the vaginal canal is not a sterile environment, right? It has a lot of bacteria, has a lot of things that can contaminate that birth tissue. So that is not the route that we want to obtain a tissue. So when it's cesarean section, then everything is sterile. So the tissue is completely sterile. And once the baby's born and the cord is cut, then the birth tissue will be, wrapped up and placed on ice to be shipped overnight to the laboratory. And once they arrive in the laboratory, they will test for a lot of pathogens, and only when it's, actually not just pathogens, but also any kind of potential infectious signs of infection of any conditions. So basically it goes through the same screening as organ donation. So let's say someone wants a liver transplant, the liver has to go through, a lot of screening, hepatitis, HIV, and syphilis, the whole required screening that's done for organ transplant. It's the same set of screening, except that for our company, we actually do more. We screen we screen Lyme disease, we screen COVID. So we add things, that are above and beyond. And so once the screening is done, and the product will be processed so we can separate out the cells. And once the final product is made, it's sent out to a third-party lab so this is external laboratory that they will test for pathogen. They will look at whether or not there has been any kind of contamination during the processing, the procedure. And that usually takes 2 weeks to find out what the result will be, because they're going to grow, try to grow to see if any bacteria or any infectious agents actually grow, if any endotoxin produced. So once that result comes back completely clean, that's when the cells can actually be given for clinical use. So that's kind of the process.
So I'm glad we're starting to talk about the process. There are some people, I don't know if they're still around or not, that used to say, "Oh, my stuff has more MSCs than your stuff has per ml or whatever." And there were people were processing things, and how is it handled in the laboratory, and what about processing to increase the number of MSCs and that kind of stuff?
Every company is very different. So this is a new field. So this is kind of a new science. And the MSCs is not the easiest to process because, first of all, if you do cord blood, just a caveat that you have very, very little MSCs. You'd be lucky to have 1%, and that would be lucky. But because cord blood is very similar in composition to bone marrow, and bone marrow has between 0.1 to 0.01% of MSCs, in the bone marrow. But so the cord tissue contain a lot of MSCs, especially the Wharton's jelly, which is a gelatinous material that kind of wraps around the blood vessels and prevent it from kinking and cutting off blood supply. So they're kind of gelatinous, but they are connective tissue. But the cells are embedded in the connective tissue. So you can imagine that it may be a little more difficult to free them out. If they're suspended in blood, that's easy, right? You just spin them down. But if they're caught in the connective tissue, how do you take them out of the connective tissue without using enzymes? Because, what we're using is what's called, the product is under Section 361 under FDA guidelines. So these are minimally manipulated products. So you cannot use any enzymes, any chemicals when you are processing the tissue, and you cannot grow the tissue, to big numbers, or you can't change their structures. So these are minimally manipulated, and then you can directly give it for human use as a tissue transplant, and that doesn't make them drugs, right? So drugs need to go through certain clinical trials, and FDA, had the guideline that if you don't manipulate them in any way and you just give them as a transplant, then it's not a drug. So we do not manipulate them in any way. So if you can't use enzymes, how do you free the cells? Because enzymes can digest the collagen, and then all of a sudden all the cells are freed up. But if you don't do that, then you have to use mechanical methods, and different laboratories have very different methods. And some are able to keep the cells alive and some, can't. So there's drastic difference. And just because they say there are all these cells in there, yeah, there may be, but they could be all dead, right? So that's one of the controversies. How do you know the cells are alive? Oh, because we test them. we send them to labs and they can test to see if the DNA is intact, if the cells are intact. So that's how you know whether or not they're alive. If they're metabolically active, they are alive. So, like, for example, our product has, about 85% of viability, which means that, when we thaw the cells out after they've been cryopreserved, we thaw them out and we look them, under microscope, and we check whether or not they're alive using, the methods in the lab. There are about 85% of them that are still alive. So that's, the cell count, cell count don't mean a whole lot if the cells are dead, right? So some labs are able to produce a higher cell count, some lower, some produce higher viability, some lower. So there's just a lot of variability in the space.
Yeah, that's, I think a lot of people got into trouble too with that stuff too, with the FDA, the use of enzymes and things like that. I think there was a lot of things. Let's talk about some of the things that the uses of stem cells, because let's just talk about the uses for, let's say, which I was really surprised to find out that they can be part of a fertility treatment.
Fertility, I have seen studies that showed that MICs can help with ovarian health. And, I don't think they've done human studies, but in animals, definitely, I think it's mice that they were able to increase ovarian size, aging ovaries, so menopausal mice. So aging ovaries, increasing ovarian size, increasing the number of follicles that contain eggs, and so increasing the number of eggs released. So that definitely, there's some suggestion it can rejuvenate reproductive health.
Okay. What are some of the other excuse me, what are some of the other uses of stem cell therapy in particular for organ systems?
First of all, I can't make any claims, right? So because, this is, because we haven't conducted enough clinical study, well, there are a lot of clinical studies, but, still, this is a sensitive area about making claims, not making any claims.
No, Dr. Kong, I forgot to read my medical disclaimer that I read at the beginning. We'll have to put it in there. It's not the one that your lawyer would have written.
This is crucial in this age and time. We have an interesting climate right now. So what I want to say to people is that, like in my course, doctors who take my course will take away over 300 scientifically published articles that's categorized in different organ systems and disease categories. So a lot of diseases have been studied. So it's not like there hasn't been evidence. So what I will do is to point to evidence. So there has been evidence of tremendous benefit of any autoimmune conditions, because the stem cells are so anti-inflammatory and has such immune modulating properties. So any autoimmune related issues or high inflammatory states, this can be very helpful. And it has been found to be very helpful for cardiovascular conditions. You can talk about, we pretty much can talk about all the organs that, for liver, for the lungs, for musculoskeletal, for, reproductive, right, for the brain. So it can, the evidence has pointed to benefits and even for cancer cases. So there's a lot of studies that have been done that have shown very, very, very encouraging results. And a lot of these patients, you have to realize, is that traditional medicine approaches, have very little to offer. And that's a lot of these chronic conditions just not getting better because we don't have enough tools. So to see the kind of results that you can achieve with stem cell therapy, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, most of the time it's here's some Vicodin and have a good day, which doesn't deal with anything. So what about systemic use of stem cells? Is that something that people do, or what's the theory on that?
What I can say is that I do it on myself. Um,
Okay.
so I'm 3 months away from being 50,
Hmm.
and I can tell you that I have aged backwards. So I look a lot younger than when I was 43. So I started doing stem cells about 4.5 years ago, and I just wanted to not age, but I didn't know it actually made me younger. So that I did not anticipate, which is really, really cool. It's like I'm an experiment.
Sure.
So I donated my body for science. so so I do it for anti-aging benefits, right? So
Hmm.
first of all, I'm replenishing the stem cells,
Hmm.
the lost, because as I decline, right, in your 40s, you have 1/40th the number of stem cells as you when you were born. So you're not mounting enough repair. And that's why people they start to sag, right? That the
Hmm.
wrinkles is coming on, they're sagging, hair is graying, and maybe their muscle mass is less, and the metabolism slowing down. I mean, that's just what you can see. What you cannot see is everything inside of your body, right? Your
Hmm.
heart is aging, your lungs are aging, your liver is aging, your everything is aging, that even though you can't see. So what I want to do is to give it back its intelligence to fix it, to repair. Because when people say it's very, very, the most common problem of aging is aching bones and
Hmm.
joints, right?
Sure.
So osteoarthritis. And people think that's a wear and tear disease. That is absolutely not a wear and tear disease, because we do not wear and tear our body, at age 60, the way we wear and tear our body at the age of 12. We are not damaging. I'm trying to break it down like we were little kids, but it doesn't matter for little kids because they replace everything, they replenish, repair right away. This is a problem of lagging repair. We cannot repair damages anymore. The inflammation is rampant throughout your body. So if I can calm the inflammation, I can give my body the signal and the intelligence to repair, basically speak the right language, the language that was kind of, coming to a whimper, when we're age, that we're just not telling the body, hey, repair, repair, repair. But if I put in the right language and speak loud and clear, let's repair, and then all of a sudden, all your tissues from the inside out, everything can start regenerating. So that's what I'm doing. And that's the systemic benefit of
Yeah.
calming inflammation and providing the information.
So how often does for the systemic benefit, how often would somebody be
So
looking?
the length of the stem cells in your body, they stay for about 3 months. So it's not like in your body they live forever. They actually probably only about 2 to 5% actually end up staying in your body. Majority will do its work and be gone,
Hmm.
because there's a finite lifespan. When they go into your body, they will do their work, but there's an attrition rate. Just like inflammation is detrimental to your own cells, because they see, inflammation is toxic to your cells. They're
Hmm.
also toxic to stem cells. When the stem cells are helping you fight a battle, they also have a finite lifespan. So usually they will have many generations, but they die off in about 3 months. But their downstream effect will be another 3 months, because they secrete all these exosomes, and then they will carry out the work. And so the long-term effect is on average about another 3 months. So if a person wants to do it for anti-aging purposes, I would say okay, do one every 6 months. That will be, that probably will really help you, stop the aging process.
Hmm.
That's a hope. But if you want to be more aggressive, like quite a few of my patients want to, they want to, like me, I do it every 3 months. So a lot of my patients, actually want to do that as well. So that will be a more aggressive way of doing it. And the way I visualize is kind of interesting. I want to share with you. I found out that this new research article, they found out that women who had given birth, and they looked at their brain, and they compared to women of their same age but have not given birth, right? No pregnancy, no birth.
Hmm.
The women who had given birth, their brain is 5 months younger. And this is
Oh,
fascinating, right? And to me, intuitively, intuitively, I was like, oh, they got stem cell infusion during pregnancy, because we do know that there's exchange of genetic material, of
sure.
cells. And women do have their children's cells all over their body. I kind of joke around. I said, well, every 3 months, then I get a mini pregnancy. I go backward 5 months. So every 3 months, I go backward 5 months. So you can imagine 4.5 years later, right? I've gone backward. So that's that's the every 3 months is kind of a fun way to visualize it.
Sure, sure. Um, so in this internet world where everyone is an expert and everything you Google, and of course we know every time you Google something, you always get accurate information because it was on the internet. And the other thing is that everyone has a killer website. When you go research, they have a killer website. They got their testimonials. They got them. They got all that stuff up there, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I will. I say a lot of stuff I shouldn't say. I mean, when I used to be a periodontist, I got to because it was a lot of referral. I got to see a lot of patients from other people's practices, and so a lot of times I knew who was good and who was bad. And some of the people with the best websites and the best marketing teams were just not particularly great on the clinician side. So as a patient out there searching, I mean, you go in anything. I'm sure you've experienced this. When you're out of your area, you go search and try to find something. How does someone determine what is a high quality stem cell practitioner?
Yeah, that is so hard, right? Because like you said, not all that glitters are gold. There are some people who are very good at marketing, and they end up seeing a lot of patients, and there are a lot of great doctors who are just not very good at getting business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. But first of all, I think probably it's better if people can find a ways, to be referred right to somebody, instead of just buying into what they see. If they actually know somebody that can refer people, knowing the doctor is really knowledgeable, is highly within high integrity, and can produce results, that would be the ideal way, is getting referrals. And do your research, look the doctors up. Definitely, I think, thank God for internet. Some of the doctors that have done not very good work, there are reviews, so check out the reviews. But also, look at, maybe check out, maybe do a consultation first. I would say, I spend a lot of times with my patients in consultation, because I really want to answer every question they have. And I know some of the doctors are so driven by volume and just, wanting to make quick bucks, that they don't care to spend much time with you. They don't really want to talk very much. It's kind of like a, assembly line. And those may be the doctors you want to avoid, because your health is not their priority. You are a way for them to have a good life. So, and then maybe, be more educated on the subject, so you can tell, if someone is bullshitting you. But it's hard, because a lot of people portray a very, very good image. But maybe, listen to them if they have any videos, and see if they actually know. They know what they're talking about, because a lot of doctors speak on very general terms. I would say, I'm going to offend a lot of doctors, but because stem cell therapy is such an elegant therapy, because it's so holistic, you don't need to have complicated regimen. You don't need to have this incredible, sophisticated calculations and equipments to do this, because the cells will do it for you, because they are the intelligence, they are what's powerful. So once they give it to your body's going to do its own thing. So a lot of doctors, without knowing much, they can all do this and produce decent results. But it doesn't mean that they have the right foundation of knowledge, and doesn't mean that they have the best techniques, because I see a lot of doctors do it wrong. And this is another reason I founded the Academy, is to provide the right protocols for doctors, because a lot of doctors, when they do IV stem cells, they are doing it in a very, very irresponsible way, in my eyes, potential causing damage. Because they don't know enough about the science, about what happens when you try to do an IV push, through a syringe. What can happen? There's potential embolism, and what can happen when you have the cells in a very, very concentrated solution. You need to have certain dilution factors, and when people are just thinking, oh, once I put this in and it would just work fine, but it carries risk. So a lot of people are not doing it responsibly, but they can all do it. And a lot of times there may not be consequences, because even though the risk is there, doesn't mean that bad things will happen every time. So it becomes challenging. So maybe look to see if the doctor have the right certification. Like the American Academy Integrated Cell Therapy, we not only provide education, but we offer certification. So make sure that they have the right credentials.
So they go to the American Academy of Integrative
Cell Therapy. Yeah. It's
Cell Therapy.
AAICT.org. Okay. So there's the fundamentals of stem cell practice. Anyone can take the course, and it's not expensive. It's online, and you can get fully educated. You can get all the documents and all of the articles, and just know what you're doing, because it's so elegant, so simple, that a lot of people think that they don't need to. They think, oh, I know how stem cells work. And yeah, just put in the joint, but they don't know enough of really how the stem cells work and all the nuances. So find somebody that actually have been properly trained.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're not enough.
Now, does your group provide a list of certified doctors by area or things like that? Is that something that you guys have available?
You have a list of providers, so people can contact us, and then we'll be happy to to send them to the right person. Yeah,
because that's a great resource to be able for somebody who's interested in getting some cell therapy, to be confident that they're getting to the right place with the right practitioner. Because that's always just kind of a nightmare, because it's a significant investment too.
Very, very much. Yeah. But it's also one of the best investments you can make on your life. Because I remember a patient comes to see me every 3 months to do stem cells, and his friends ask, how can you look so good? Like, how come you look younger than us? You look so great. And he said, well, this is what I do, stem cells, this and that. And then they don't follow up. A lot of people, it's like they see the benefit, but then they don't really want to put the effort in. And he was telling the friends, hey, you know what? You're investing in stock market and all this stuff. And guess what? I'm investing in myself. And that is the best investment you can ever make.
Yeah, that's my pet peeve. Especially, I'm sure you've had friends that talk to you about stuff and then they don't do anything. And I usually remember when they've asked me, and I go like, why would we talk about this again, since you didn't do what I advised you to do last time?
You are a doctor, but you're also people's friend. You're people's member. It's the same thing. It's like, okay, you can lead the horse to water, right? To the well, whatever.
Right, but you can't.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Dr. Kong, I want to thank you. We covered a lot.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we got a lot covered, and I think that anyone listening to this will have a pretty good idea, one, of what stem cell therapy is, what the different types of stem cells are out there, about procurement, uses, and also how to find a practitioner that's well trained in providing stem cell therapy. So I want to thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you.
I
This
think
is
that,
Oris, the official old guy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just really glad that, that you're helping to get information out there. I think so many people are so confused that this is really, valuable thing that you're doing, for people.
Perfect. Thank you. This is Oris, the official old guy at oldguytalkstome.com, a podcast dedicated to helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. Until next time. And by the way, all the links will be in the program.
This is information only. Consult with an appropriate professional before starting any program. Do not be stupid. You are responsible for your own shit. The old guy is a capitalist and not a socialist weasel. He will be promoting stuff here and may be compensated. You can rest assured the old guy only promotes stuff he uses. You may have different results.
Thanks for joining me on this podcast. If you like what you heard and learned, then be sure to do 3 things. 1, subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. 2, share this with someone who may need to hear it also, and it may be your significant other. And 3, review it. Give me a good review. If you didn't like it, give me a bad review. I don't care. Just review me. And be sure to get my free video on 3 ways to get laid more frequently without begging. Opt in at oldguytalks.com. Don't be that guy that just takes in the information. Take action. Without action, you're not going to get the results you want.